What if Kublai Khan conquered Japan? The Mongol invasions of Japan, which took place in 1274 and 1281, were major military efforts undertaken by Kublai Khan to conquer the Japanese archipelago after the submission of Korea to vassaldom. Ultimately a failure, the invasion attempts are of great importance in history because they set a limit on Mongol expansion and rank as nation-defining events in the history of Japan. The Mongol invasions are considered a precursor to early modern warfare. One of the most notable technological innovations during the war was the use of explosive hand-thrown bombs. So at the time of the invasions, Japan was decentralized with a bunch of shoguns running around. In 1266, Big Boss Kublai Khan, leader of the Mongols, sent some emissaries to Japan, depending that Japan became a vassal state and sent tribute under the threat of conflict. However, the emissaries returned empty-handed. A second set of emissaries were sent in 1268, returning empty-handed like the first. Both sets were met with the defense commissioner for the West, who passed on the message to Hojo Tokimun, Japan's ruler in Kamakura, and to the Emperor of Japan in Kyoto. So, the Japanese basically had their mind made up, even though there was great debate. The imperial court suggested compromise, but really had little effect in the matter. After acknowledging its importance, the imperial court led great prayer services, and much government business was put off to deal with the crisis. So of course, head honcho Kublai was off his rockers at the return message. How dare these insolent Japanese stand up to the leader of the world's greatest contiguous land empire? So he got Khan broiling, and he sent forth his forces. The Yuan Fleet, the Yuan dynasty was in place in China at the time, under the Mongols. The Yuan fleet set out with an estimated 15,000 Mongol and Chinese soldiers and 1,600 to 8,000 Korean soldiers in 300 large vessels and hundreds of smaller craft, along with several thousand soldiers. So they landed in Japan on October 5th, 1274. The Mongols basically defeated the Japanese on land in multiple battles. The Japanese were inexperienced in managing such a large force, and the Mongols made significant initial progress. It had been approximately 50 years since the last major combat event in Japan, leaving not a single Japanese general with adequate experience in moving large bodies of troops. In addition, the style of warfare that was customary within feudal Japan involved single combat, even on a large battlefield. The Mongols, on the other hand, possessed foreign weapons which included a superior long-range armaments, the short composite bows that the Mongols were famous for, and grenades, arrows, exploding things, you got it. And they easily had the upper hand in open land combat. The Japanese force at Hakata Bay needed time to await the arrival of reinforcements, with which they would be able to overwhelm the Mongol invaders. Then that's when bad luck struck from the Mongols. Around nightfall, a typhoon caused the Mongol ship captain to suggest that the land force re-embark in order to avoid the risk of being marooned on Japanese soil. Kinda dumb, I think. Why would you set out your ships when there's a typhoon going on? By daybreak, only a few ships had not been sent out to sea. Those that had were destroyed by the storm. Again, no surprise. Some accounts suggest that up to 200 Mongol ships were lost. So the Japanese navy, much swifter, basically blasted back the Mongol ships, and they headed way back to old Kublai. Now Kublai tried another invasion in 1281, but that went even worse than the first one. The Japanese sent the Mongols back into the ocean where they came from, and a typhoon later known as the kamikaze or divine wind destroyed what was left. Remember kamikaze, that's going to come up later in World War II. So let's ask, what if the Mongols were to succeed? Well, if they were to win, they would have to win in the first campaign. They lost every single battle with the Japanese in the second campaign, since the Japanese were much more better prepared and fortified. Also, the Mongols don't have a good rap with navies. They were annihilated later on in Vietnam when they were sent an army on ships. Don't worry, America is not the first to be defeated in Vietnam. So let's say that the Mongols don't highbrow it back to their ships right before a typhoon, and they defeat the Japanese. They will likely execute the emperor, like they executed the Caliph of Baghdad. So both men resisted the invasion of the Mongols in our timeline, and both men were seen as divine and a sort of religious leader. This would be an enormous blow to Japanese power, and the Japanese would no longer think of themselves as invincible and above everyone else. The Mongols would have a tough time holding on to Japan due to the mountainous terrain and considering the fact that they are used to wide open plains as nomadic people. Within a few decades, the Mongol Empire collapses, and Japan openly rebels under the control of the powerful governor whom the Mongols have placed in power. The governor becomes a secular replicant of the emperor and unites the Japanese under a central authority. Culture from throughout the Mongol Empire has flown into Japan, including both Islamic and Chinese influences. Japan is no longer isolationist and becomes actively involved in foreign policy. Japan may even attempt to colonize surrounding islands and expand its sphere of influence. Now, onto World War II. During World War II, Japan would know that it's not invincible, like it thought itself to be in our timeline. Therefore, they would not be nearly as aggressive, and they probably won't even commit many of the atrocities that they did in our timeline. The kamikaze attacks against the Americans in our timeline would never happen. And the Japanese may even not attack Pearl Harbor, not being as brash and, being all uppity like they were in our timeline. The defeat of the Mongols just made Japan think that it was invincible, impervious to attack. And without that victory, Japan would know that it was just like any other nation. Just like China, just like Korea, just like any other nation that fell to the Mongols. So that's my take on the topic. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe. This is Scholar of the World, signing out.